There we go. All right, we are live on a Mondays with Mick, the little timeout with Higher Power Sports and the Mondays with Mick edition. We're back at Shenanigans again here in Sioux Falls. Again, they treat us pretty well, get us in this back room here, and so we can have some peace and quiet and a little social distancing. So we thank Andy and the team here at Shenanigans. Thank our sponsor, Riverview Insurance. We can't do this without a sponsor, I guess,
Yeah.
So we appreciate that.
Very great.
And, I won't bring her up today, but I got I better.
Yeah. Part of the routine here, Barry.
All right.
Take it as a compliment that we're comfortable with you.
Oh, yeah.
We got Remy here. She's training to be a therapy dog, so she's sitting over in the corner, and
nice.
we appreciate her. So, Mick, another week. What are you working on at Sanford Health News?
Today was that at the Pentagon. Pentagon is a basketball arena out here. I don't know if you're familiar with it, Barry, but really a cool little place. Holds like 3,200, and it's part of kind of the Sanford Health Network, and they just installed, or they have this kind of real comprehensive huddle system where they can tape, you can video any practice or any game, and how it's going to be kind of a cool deal for both coaches who are trying to, who are coaching, and coaches who are recruiting, and then the parents and friends and stuff are going to have access to games and practices out there at very high quality video. And just, I guess coaches are pretty familiar with Huddle. I'm not, but just the capacity to index things and to do things much more quickly, get information much more quickly than you would have had it in the past. They're pretty proud of it, and I think they should be. And it'll be something I think that a lot of people don't quite realize how cool it is, but that once they get it, it's going to be something that they covet.
Yeah, Barry, do you guys use Huddle?
We do. And most of the, they combined with crossover. So most of the schools, at least in Minnesota, high schools are using Huddle. And a few schools have the cameras you're talking about, Mick. And so then we don't even bring our camera. They just downloads and boom, sends it right to us. And it's pretty slick. There's like 3 cameras, so it's always motion detecting, following the ball. And it's nice. It's new wave technology for sure.
That's awesome. Joining us tonight, Mick, is if you grew up or were around Minnesota in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, Barry Wohler was a name that you knew. And Mick, before we get to him, when's the first time you remember hearing about Barry?
Well, we're both from the class of 81. I graduated from Austin Pacelli, 1981. But you were always that dude. And I don't think people over here don't understand it, but when I in conversation with people back in Minnesota who followed Minnesota sports, and I know you've heard this whole thing 1,000, 2,000 times, whatever, but this guy was the best in 3 sports, and in Minnesota, and it was really fun, especially with the basketball, because I think basketball is such a more, everybody watched the state tournaments every year, and it was just I spent like an hour and a half with Peyton Manning a couple of years ago as a part of my job at the time, and this is a bigger deal, Barry.
Well,
Pressure's on.
Man, I feel pretty special now. Thanks, Nick.
I might be moving around a little bit there, but
yeah.
But the point being that it's great to meet you.
Well, thank you, Mick. I appreciate you guys having me on, you and Tim.
And
back.
So for those that don't know, let's step back to where you grew up and things like that.
Yeah, I grew up in a little farm town, Bird Island, Minnesota. And at the time, the school was Bird Island, Lake Lillian. Since those days, they've combined with Olivia, which now they're Bold schools. But yeah, my dad was my high school basketball coach. and my cousin Jack Marco was my high school baseball and football coach. So nepotism ruled, baby.
Yeah,
I
you
got
would
to
have
get
got
in
it.
and start playing as a all three sports. But oh, it was really kind of surreal times going there. We had a lot of success, and we were fortunate to win some games. Sometimes when you make those runs to state tournaments, that you always have to win some ugly ones, and we were able to get by there. But I think Mick was talking about the name recognition. Is the state tournament, basketball tournament, was just two classes back then, and we had kind of a fun team to watch. We ran and everybody shared the ball, and back then, Johnson and Larry Bird were kind of the guys that everybody looked up to, and they made the pass fun. I'd rather make a great pass than to shoot a 3-pointer. And we just got a lot of recognition from the Metro media then, and I did in particular. For some reason, Sid Hartman kind of took me under his wing when I was a junior in high school. And so, we all 3 games were televised both years, and we had some exciting. Our state championships both went double overtime, and so I just think that media exposure is kind of what made people aware of myself and Bird Island and my teammates.
Well, and you think about the media back then. We're going back a ways before social media.
Yeah,
the media was Sid Hartman in
right.
the paper, and things like that.
Yeah.
Imagine in this day and age, the recognition you would have got, or everybody being able to see you play.
Yeah, I think too. But I think sometimes with social media can be a bit of a detriment too, because you got to deal. These kids have to deal with their haters much more, and everybody has an opinion, and they have to be pretty thick-skinned. I think there's. I mean, I'm sure there's stuff we got away with. We were all grown up. We won't get away with now, for sure.
Absolutely. So you mentioned basketball. You were pretty successful in football and baseball as well down in Bird Island.
Right. Well, when we went to state in football my sophomore, junior, senior year, and we won the state championship in Class C, which was the smallest 11-man football at the time. We won that my junior, senior year. And then we also won basketball state championship my junior, senior year. Baseball, we could never quite get out of the district. I think it was either Norwood or Glencoe would get us. But we went 18-0 in baseball my junior year and got beat in the district final. But ironically, baseball ended up being the sport I ended up going the furthest in with minor leagues with the Dodgers and stuff.
So we'll come back to maybe some Bird Island stuff, but then let's just continue on. You obviously went on to the University of Minnesota. Were you recruited by,
Yeah, I was probably recruited more for football than any other sport, but I two that probably recruited me the most as a quarterback was Brigham Young in Minnesota. Brigham Young signed some guy named Steve Young. I don't know what happened to him, but at the time, Jim McMahon was the quarterback, and it's a pretty conservative school. And I said, well, how did Jim McMahon handle that? Oh, he's just fine. Well, the next year I read an article. They asked Jim McMahon what he liked about Brigham Young. He said, when I saw it in the rearview mirror. But they're great not to cut down Brigham Young. But Jim McMahon was kind of a wild man, as we know. And then baseball was, Arizona, some southern schools. I was really raw in baseball. I had a pretty good arm in my ball move. I ended up, as a pitcher. And but basketball was always my favorite. And back then, growing up in Minnesota, I always wanted to be a Gopher. I got recruited a lot by like the Pac-10, the Big 8, and some of the Big 10 for basketball. I was naive enough to think I could play all 3 at Minnesota, so I signed up. And I went there on a football scholarship as a quarterback and broke the middle finger on my passing hand, just a tip. It's called a mallet finger. And then I went to Smokey Joe. Salem was the coach. And I said, I can't throw. said, well, do you want to go to safety? I said, no. Have you seen the size of our running backs? No. So at that point, Jim Dutcher was the head men's basketball coach, and Flip Saunders was one of the assistants. Well, that summer, I went to a couple camps with Flip, and really ended up working out against him and playing against him a lot. And he kind of gave the okay to Dutch that I could play Big Ten basketball. They switched me over to a basketball scholarship as I ended up playing basketball and baseball for 2 years. And baseball was John Anderson's first year as the head coach.
That's amazing.
And you'll know these days, all three Steinbachs were there. So Terry hit third, Tommy hit fourth, and Tim hit fifth. And we had another guy, Jack Schlichting, who ended up playing the Dodger organization. One game against Wisconsin, those guys went back to back to back to back. 4 solo home runs in a row. I can pitch for this team. For sure.
That's
But
good.
yeah.
And then, so you spent a couple years at the University of Minnesota, and then you moved on.
Yeah, I turned after my sophomore year. I turned 21 before August 1st. So I was eligible for the major league draft, and the Dodgers drafted me. And I went to a college league that summer in Peoria, Illinois. It's the same league that Kirby Puckett had played in. He was younger than me, so I didn't play against him, thank God. But I ended up having a pretty good summer, and then the Dodgers signed me in August. And then I went to the fall league out in Arizona, pitched pretty well, and then I got invited to big league camp right away, which was kind of cool. I was basically an extra BP thrower, but for 2 weeks you're wearing the uniform and hi Tommy, the sort of. So I did that for 5 years, and then after my first year, I transferred to St. Cloud State, and I played 2 more years of basketball there for Butch Raymond and Kevin Schlegel. Butch was the head coach, Kevin was the assistant, and we had a great run there. We had great teams. My junior year, back then when you transfer, even if you transfer D1, D2, you had a red shirt. So I redshirted that first year, but then my junior year, we won like 19 in a row. We were ranked number 1 in the country. And both years we got beat in the Elite 8 to go to the Final 4. And just to skip forward another year, the team that beat us my senior year was Delta State, who had Gerald Glass, who ended up being the number 1 pick for the Timberwolves, and Scott Nagy, who was longtime coach of South Dakota State.
Yeah.
Scott was a heck of a player.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah, he was really good. And so, I had those connections, and it was a lot. It was fun. That Hollenbeck Hall would be packed. There'd be 8,000 people. So you come out for warm-ups, and then compared to Minnesota, when I was a freshman, we won the Big Ten in basketball. And we played Ohio State for the outright title. There was 18,000 fans there, which was pretty exciting because they hadn't done all the renovations. But I always tell people that the electricity and the hair still goes up on your neck, whether there's 8,000 packed or 18,000 packed. It was a pretty neat experience.
Absolutely. And then before we get to what you're doing now, let's kind of backtrack here a little bit. You mentioned playing for your dad. And
Yeah.
I had the opportunity to play some basketball for my dad as well in high school. Unique experience, but how was that relationship? And how since then, how did it progress?
Well, I felt really fortunate to play for my dad. He was a confidence builder. Sometimes that father-son relationship can be a little terse or tense, but he always gave me the freedom freedom, especially offensively, back then throwing behind the back passes and between the leg passes. And so I always played with a lot of confidence, and I take that towards him. And he taught really good defense, but he liked up tempo. So we pushed the ball a lot, and we didn't really need a shot clock. We were shooting it up before any shot clock would have gone off anyway. But I think that the thing he taught me most is his relationships with his players. I mean, still now he's still in Bird Island, 84 years old, and he and my mom drive around a golf cart, and they still call him coach. And the guys knew he cared about him. So I think that's one thing I try to take away from him when, with coaching now is build those relationships with the kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned now, coaching now, and, you kind of followed in your dad's footsteps and being a coach. You take a lot of the things that you learned from him and use them on your teams now.
I do. I think you take a little bit from all your coaches. I took a lot of defensive things from when I played for Coach Dutcher at Minnesota. We worked defense a lot there. And then when I went and played for Butch Raymond, he did a great job of instilling confidence on everybody on the floor to find somewhere on the floor where you're a threat to score. And so I try to do that with my teams too. So, you see some teams, all right, you can lay off number 3 or number 4, but we just try to teach you guys, find somewhere where you can be efficient. So they have to play 5-on-5 against us. But I think it always comes back to relationships, and when the kids know you believe in them, they play a little bit harder.
Absolutely. And then, so for people that don't know, where are you coaching? And we talked a little bit before, you've got a full plate there.
Yeah, I'm at Orono High School, which is right off of 394 when it turns into Highway 12. It's up by Wayzata. We're about 2-3 miles north of Lake Minnetonka. It's there's 4 classes in basketball. We're a 3A class, and it's a great school district. And I've been fortunate to have some really good players come through. I started the fall of 2007, so this is my 14th year. And we've been to state 4 times in basketball. We won it in 2011, which was fun. My son was a junior on that team. Oh, I had the experience to play for my dad, win a state championship, and I was able to coach my son and win a state championship. And I think we're the only family right now in Minnesota that's done that, where I played for my dad, my son played for me, and we both won state championships. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Mick, you got anything right now?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know. What's your son up to these days?
Well, he is a trainer for Title Boxing. It's a workout gym up here in the Metro, and they go 8 rounds on the heavy bags, and then it reminds me of like when the wrestlers used to practice. So they warm up with cardio, then they punch the bag for 8 3-minute rounds, and then they do core, and then their T-shirts are soaked. And so, like, I never wrestle him or arm wrestle him anymore at all. I mean, but he's like 6'4", 210. I just walk down dark aisles with him. I feel safe.
And how your team this year, with the COVID, a late start, maybe talk about a little of that, the changes and things.
Well, I think first of all, we're just really happy that we got to have a season as tight as the restrictions have been in Minnesota. I know you guys are in South Dakota and it's been more open, but we have a condensed season. We started January 4th. We have two weeks left. We reduced our games from 26 to 18 regular season. And now these last 2 weeks, we go basically every other day until the playoffs with a game to finish out the season. In Minnesota, the kids have to wear masks when they play, which is can be tough. At first, it's just the coaches in charge. The referees didn't have to do anything. Well, we had some hockey teams where the referees and players, nobody wore a mask. Well, then the high school league kind of cracked down a little bit. But it's been a nuisance. But in our referee association, 90 refs have opted out not to ref. So we're appreciative of the guys that have. And I've probably met more new faces reffing this year than I have, which isn't all bad. And so it's been a challenge, but I think it's a lot better than the alternative. And that's, watching the Timberwolves on TV, if you can something like that.
Yeah. That's painful.
Yeah.
So let's go back to your college days, let's go back to your minor league days.
Okay.
What was it like back then to be a minor league baseball player?
Well, I was with the Dodge organization, And I signed late in August of 83. So I went right to fall league where they bring all the prospects from rookie league all the way to AAA, or maybe major leaguers rehabbing. And all the coaches are there, and even the major league staff. And one of the roving pitching instructors is Sandy Koufax. And, people our age remember him, maybe the greatest lefty of all time. And he was nicest guy, very humble. But in 83, he started throwing batting practice in the major league camp, or 84, I should say. And nobody knew, but he's like 50, he's thinking about comeback. And I would be backing up, they'd hit the ball and they'd throw it in, and I'd run the balls back up to Sandy to throw it. But I'd never seen a curveball like that before in my life. It was, remember Steve Yeager, the old catcher? He was swinging. He was trying to hit Koufax's curveball. He finally just threw the bat out of the cage. Walked away. I can't touch that. He was 50. So anyway, I pitched. I had a pretty good outing in fall ball, and it struck out a couple AAA guys. And this was my first experience. And so I'm sitting in the bullpen, and Sandy's out there. And I said, Sandy, when did you like to use your changeup? He goes, well, to be honest, he says, my curveball was pretty good. I never needed a changeup, but you will. So I thought, you're right. I don't throw 100 like he did. But the experience was fun. We would go to spring training, March for the minor leagues. Season would start in April, and you'd have 142 games. I played a couple years of A-ball at Vero Beach where we had spring training. So that was, our furthest trip was 3 hours. You played in all the major league parks, or spring training parks anyway. And then I played the better part of 3 years at AA in San Antonio. And our shortest trip was 6 hours, and our longest was 18 on a bus. So you'd sleep for 10 hours and still have 8 to go. It kind of sucked. But you never wanted to be the opening day pitcher when you got, to start a road trip, because the guys are so sore and tired they couldn't hit. But it was fun. My routine, basically, I would go to spring training. We'd be done in September. I go to St. Cloud State, start classes, and play basketball. I tell people I was fortunate. I got to play ball the first 27 years of my life, so that wasn't too bad.
Now, I think I heard a story or read a story once about a long game that you were involved in.
Yeah, it's still the longest scoreless game in pro baseball history, minor league, major league. So we end up winning 1-0 in 26 innings. But it was 0-0 on a Thursday. I remember this. And I was tabbed to start Saturday. Well, about the 22nd, 23rd inning, the skipper's like, you think you could go? It's like 1:30 in the morning. I yawn, I'm getting to sleep. I said, yeah, I'll go down, warm up. Well, the Texas League commissioner suspended the game at 2 a.m., so I didn't get in. But it was suspended to Saturday. So I started the suspended game and got the win at 2 innings. So the vulture, but I have a baseball, the Big Zero, that all the pitchers, or 6 of us pitchers that pitched in that game, signed. And so that was pretty cool. That was in San Antonio.
That's awesome. And then let's talk a little bit about St. Cloud State. You mentioned Coach Raymond and Coach Schlegel.
Yeah.
For those that don't know those two, unbelievable people.
Yes. Yeah. Great people. Much success. After Coach Raymond was done with basketball, he became the commissioner of the Northern Sun. And then Coach Schlegel took over, and he ended up taking St. Cloud State to a Final Four. But, my experience in colleges there was, they were, again, good relationship people. But sometimes it's hard to have that cohesiveness in college on a team, because guys are all stars in high school. If they're not playing in college, it can get tough in that locker room. But they really created an atmosphere where everybody felt part of it. And the guys that weren't playing were actually pulling for the guys in the game to do well. And it was really a fun experience. It's a tough league. I would compare the league back then to kind of where the Summit is now, because there wasn't as many low-level Division I. And every game was tough. Like you go out to Augustana, South Dakota State. I mean, everywhere's a packed house. Those are great memories. But I played with Kevin Catron when I was a junior. He was a 6'4" kid out of Cleveland who tore his ACL, ended up going to School of Science up in North Dakota, and he was an All-American. And then Reggie Perkins, who was out of Milwaukee, and he was a 2-time All-American, and he played some in the CBA, the NBA minor leagues, and then he played 4 years with the Globetrotters. I probably talk to Reggie once every couple of weeks still. He's the athletic director at Washburn High School in Minneapolis, and he coached there for a while, won a state championship there too. So, it's still very close ties. We all got together last summer and golfed at the St. Cloud Country Club with Coach Raymond, Coach Schlegel, and that 86, 87 group, and we had a good old time.
That's awesome.
Did you play with Bruce Anderson? Was he on that team?
I did play with Bruce. I was going to mention that when you said Pacelli, because he was Austin, and
He was an Austin guy. Yeah.
yeah, he was a really good player. He and a couple other guys try to make one game at Orono a year anyway to say hi. So,
Okay.
Bruce was a really good player. He was on that team when I was a junior when I think Michigan Tech got us in the Elite Eight that year, but he was tough.
That's good. Great memories there. We were talking earlier about, you as a Minnesota legend. Okay. So tell me about when you were in the minor leagues or when you were traveling, or with the Gophers even, and, did you have to say, hey, don't you know who I am? Because nobody outside of Minnesota probably knew who you were, but everybody in Minnesota know who you were.
If you're a legend, it just means you're getting old. But when I was a freshman on the basketball team at Minnesota, Tommy Davis and I were the only freshmen, and that might ring a bell. Tommy was out of Maryland.
Yeah.
But our team was so big. Randy Brewer, 7'3", Cookie Holmes, Jim Pete, 6'10", John Wiley, 6'9", and Mitchell and Tucker were 6'5" guards. Well, guess who had to carry the luggage all the time? Tommy and I. And I'm pretty sure they thought I was the water boy. I was 6 foot, water on, carrying bags. So, I'm like, God, the fame is fleeting.
Oh, that's good stuff.
I got to know some of the football players at the U, and great guys, but we all stayed at Sanford Hall, and then we go down for lunch or dinner. Well, after my freshman year, we won the Big Ten title in basketball and Big Ten title in baseball. So I'd put both rings on, and I'd see if the football players and accidentally clink them, and then they locked me in a closet or something, but I just had to let them know a little.
So if you would have stuck with football, you could have got 3 rings.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah. Mike Holenski ended up being the quarterback when I was there. He was pretty good.
Absolutely.
Here's another Joe Christofferson was a good friend of mine, Pacelli kid.
Yeah.
Had a nice career there in the football program.
Oh, he was a great football player. Great guy too.
Yep.
Yeah. Joe is tough. Huh. Yeah.
So we had Paul McDonald on
Yeah.
a while ago, and he obviously talked about his dad, but we talked about the state tournament and what that meant. Let's go back to that time, winning 2 state basketball titles. You played against the Chisholm teams, and they were in the tournament at that time. What do you kind of remember about Coach McDonald and their program?
Well, I remember watching them when Paul and his brother Mike would come down with the crew cuts, and my dad said, you got to watch the Chisholm team. That's the way we want to play, And then when they were down there, Paul's brother Tom was on the team, but they got beat in the semifinals by, I think, Lake of the Woods. So we didn't get to play them in the state tournament. But I remember watching Tommy shoot from anywhere and call glass. I'm like, oh my gosh, this kid's incredible. But it was. I'm really good friends with Paul. We get together a few times a year and talk about a living legend. I'll tell you what, he can keep a room captive with his stories. Holy smoke! But the state tournament. I remember the first time I went. I was an 8th grader and it was at the Civic Center, and I didn't realize they put the floor in. I thought it was just a big arena, but the floor is in the hockey rink. And I remember we finally made it, and we're out for warm-ups. The first game we're playing Danube, who was a conference rival. We had split during the season. And I remember the lights just seemed brighter and hotter. I just remember walking on telling them, I can't believe we're actually here. But then once the game started, it was just kind of, just trying to play ball. But it was pretty neat. I think, then there's 10, 12,000 fans there for the semifinals and finals. And it was kind of surreal, to be honest with you.
That's good. Any other, when you look back, playing all those sports back in high school in Minnesota and how, kind of different things are today with kids, how special was that being in that small town?
Well, I think that is something that kids that go down to one sport really miss out on. And I think because of all the off-season training now, that's almost a must. It's really difficult for kids to be 3-sport athletes, especially as you go to the bigger schools. There's just, more competition. When you're in a smaller school, you need every able-bodied kid out for football and basketball. You need them all out for the sport. We still have, like at Orno, we have a few 3-sport, but we have quite a few 2-sport. But again, like if you're a basketball player right now, you play your season, then you play summer basketball, and then you have your coaches camps, and maybe you have August off, and then fall league starts up. I mean, it's just, I would like to see kids play more sports. And I think you talk to college coaches, they would like to see that too, just diversify the athlete and not put all their, eggs in one basket, and just the muscle groups and the injuries that kids get. But I don't know. It's, that's a whole nother subject is the youth sports and that. I mean, that's a monster that's out of control. I don't know how you pull it back in because there's no reigning, governing body. It's just, even baseball, like Legion baseball is not real big throughout the country anymore. It's like 5 states. The rest of them are playing club baseball because there's no rules, and they just go everywhere and play everywhere all year long.
Absolutely. Well, we running short on time. Mick, anything else for Barry before we let him go?
Well, there's one more guy that I need to talk about.
There we go.
You got to be sick of this already.
No, not at all.
Well, Mike Costello is a very good friend.
Oh yeah.
But when I read that Royce column that day, and there was like this 7-word quote from Mike Costello in the story talking about he went out to cover you on the play and you knock it down, basically your last high school shot, right?
Yeah. Winona Cotter, Mike was tough.
To win a game in OT, just a total storybook ending. But I wasn't real impressed with Mike's quote, and he's a English teacher and has been for a long time. It's like I'm thinking, Mike, come on, bud, you can do that. And I didn't know that it was just from that day that Royce pulled the quote from 1983.
Oh God, Mike is good buddies with my AD at Orno, Bucky Mears too, who was down at but Mike, man, those guys ran that net shuffle. Oh, I think everybody's body was so bruised from hitting screens after that game, and that was quite a memory. They just pounded you.
And then can you remember
Mike and I think Mike and I played the high school baseball star game together too. He was a good baseball player.
Okay.
And then he told me he played guard in football.
Really?
I'm like,
I wasn't aware of that.
No, I said, man, well, one of you guys didn't run much.
Oh, lanky fella.
Yeah.
So let's go back and can you replay the shot that you made, your last high school basket?
Well, I do remember it. We if we would get tied or one shot, we would go 4 corners. Phil Ford, North Carolina, 4 corners. And so I started half court, and then I don't know, clock got to about 7 or 8. I started dribbling down. If I could take them, I'd take them, but I end up pulling up from a couple feet behind the top of the key. and it went through, and it was kind of a shot I took a lot, and fortunately went in quite a bit. But I think they still had 4 seconds left, and Mike got a shot off his side. Half court went off the rim off of that too. But I'm glad mine went in and his didn't. But there was no 3-point line back then either.
Yeah. Mick, they came back and won it the next year. I believe.
That's the only reason I brought it up. Costello's.
Well,
I
Barry,
did. Yeah, go ahead.
It's been fun, and we could talk all night. Anything else that you'd like to share with us, or Mick, you got anything else before we wrap up here?
I had all the things
You got them all?
mentions. Yeah, I knocked them all down.
You want to maybe get together with Barry and see if he can still shoot? Maybe play him in a game of horse.
That's just good. So we go to Shenanigans and do this live sometime. Looks like that might be kind of fun too.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to wear a mask.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be a plus. Well, thanks, guys. It's fun reminiscing and catching up, and appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for joining us and taking some time out of your day, and good luck with your season as you go into the postseason coming up here, and then into baseball right away, because
it goes right into it. So
it's going to be 60 degrees here on Wednesday. So
that sounds so good. So good. Can't wait.
We're gonna get him to move here. If we keep going with this.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, thank you very much for your time, and we will talk to you again real soon.
That sounds great. Have a good night, guys.
Appreciate everything.
See you, Mick. See you, Tim.